Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English 1110. This is your week 8 overview lecture. As we found by now, it seems like I'm going to do every overview lecture audio only, and that's just gonna be how it is. Plans are made to be changed, as my partner would say. So I apologize if the audio only lectures are inconvenient or harder to get through, but sometimes we just got to do what we got to do. So this is your overview lecture again for week 8, and this is, of course, for June 27th to July 3rd, which, if you are paying attention to the dates, means the end of the month, which also means that, of course, all of the assignments for the month of June are officially due on the last day of June, even though they have recommended weekly deadlines. So this is just a quick and casual reminder to make sure that you turn in all of your assignments to me by the last day of June at 11:59 p.m. Eastern and send those via email, right? So I also want to flag for you that you've got a core assignment deadline next week. If you recall, you have 3 core assignments, which you can kind of think of as your major writing assignments for the semester. Now, the core assignment you've got to be thinking about for next week is the primary source analysis, which counts for 200 points, is the second of 3 core assignments in this course. And of course, in total, core assignments count for a total of 450 points. Now, the primary source analysis is a traditional essay. It is going to be an assignment that really builds on the skills you started to develop in the concentrated close read. And if you recall from the CCR lectures, the concentrated close read is really about kind of combining the skills you've practiced with the discussion board posts and with the process posts and putting them together into a concentrated close read, which is the foundation for the kind of analysis you do in the primary source analysis, okay? Now, this primary source analysis is due on Sunday, July 11th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to Carmen, but this is the last month when you can turn assignments in up until the last day of the month. This is not going to be an option in August because our semester doesn't extend till the last day of August, okay? So if you need to make use of that, please feel free to do so, but that is looking ahead. Now, this week's assignment and in-depth lecture are meant to help you build towards writing the primary source analysis, which you'll hear me abbreviate to the PSA. Now, in terms of kind of this week at a glance, you've got 2 lectures to watch, which are the overview and in-depth lectures. 1 core assignment is to begin researching, outlining, and generally preparing for, which is the primary source analysis. And then 1 assignment to complete for this week, which is discussion board post number 3. So again, the primary source analysis is due next week, but we're starting to think about it this week, and discussion board post number 3 is designed to help you begin that thinking work. Now, please note that there are no more assigned readings or viewings for the semester. We've officially exited the part where I am giving you readings and viewings to be checking in with, and instead we are pivoting towards the point in the semester when you are going to be really focusing on kind of selecting your own texts to write about and finding kind of ways to connect them to the themes and things that we've talked about this semester. I apologize if you can hear my cat wrestling around in the background. It's a struggle. So to kind of, route us back to thinking about this week's significance, all of July, which, are weeks 8 to 11 in the semester schedule, is designed for you to focus all of your energy on identifying your primary source, which is the text you will focus on and write about for the remaining 2 core assignments, writing your primary source analysis, writing your annotated bibliography, and sketching out the final project. So if you notice from this kind of sketch in thinking about what the purpose of July is, if we think back to May and June, you have been doing your foundational work, which is why it's called foundations work in the syllabus, right? You've been building kind of the different incremental skills that you will need on these larger assignments. And July is really a time when you have the kind of space to just exercise those skills on these larger assignments that are designed to really build towards the final project, but also give you a chance to kind of enhance some of your skill sets and learnings and to really focus here more on writing strategy. Because if you noticed with May and June, we were really focused on concept application and kind of the, kind of elementary building blocks of close reading. Whereas with July, we're kind of pivoting more to really refining those close readings and making sure that when you're engaging with a primary source, you're doing so in such a way that is kind of indicating you comprehend the material, but you also can make points of connection to the rest of the semester, okay? Now, again, in terms of what you've got to do this week, I ask that you first watch the video titled Week 8 Overview, which if you are listening to this lecture / watching it, you are already doing. Next, I ask that you watch the video titled Week 8 Lecture, beginning the primary source analysis. Once again, you don't have viewings and readings to engage with in addition to the lecture materials, but the in-depth lecture for this week will provide a walkthrough of the prompts for discussion board post number 3 and the primary source analysis. So generally you would get the assignment prompt in the overview lecture, but given that we are really thinking about how to go about writing a primary source analysis, it makes sense for our in-depth lecture to be focused on writing strategies and to therefore build on the prompts themselves, okay? We will also focus on how to begin researching and selecting a primary source for this project. And there is some discussion of how to make sure the primary source you've selected will be a good fit for the PSA and the annotated bibliography, or AB, which is the third of the 3 core assignments, and will really rely on you still making use of the same primary source that you select to work with in the PSA, but more on that later. Finally, I ask that you complete the following assignment and submit it to Carmen, which is discussion board post number 3. And I want to please note that the prompt for this discussion board post is customized to preparing you for the work you will do on the primary source analysis next week. So if you recall, discussion board posts 1 and 2 were very much designed as kind of opportunities for you to observe and really produce flash findings about texts that were assigned for those weeks. Discussion board post number 3 has a different prompt. So please make sure that you don't go look to use the original discussion board post prompt, because not only do you not have readings and viewings to consult to complete that, but it's simply the wrong instruction set for you to engage with, okay? So again, you will need to really engage with the in-depth lecture to have a sense of how to produce discussion board post number 3, but it's also really important to make sure that you kind of understand how discussion board post number 3 is a building block towards the PSA. Now, I do want to kind of pause here and mention that, kind of in thinking through how you are approaching this week, this means that there are 2 possible ways to work through this week, and I encourage you to select the option that works best for you based on your capacity. Now, when I talk about capacity, I mean kind of what are you able to reasonably take on without really sacrificing your mental health, your wellness, your kind of just overall abilities to do what you need to do and take care of both in your academic life, but also in your personal life. Oftentimes when we think about capacity, we might be tempted to kind of think of ourselves exclusively as laborers, meaning that you might be encouraged in other classes to only think about your schoolwork as the only things that you're having to take on. But as I hope we've kind of looked at a little bit this semester, there are plenty of other things that you might be taking on, whether it's emotional labor, caretaking, mental health, right? Tons of different things can impact your capacity beyond just the work that you have to do. Or if you work a job in addition to going to school, right? All of those things definitely provide some kind of numerical value to capacity, but we want to really make sure that we are thinking about boundary setting and what's kind of most possible for you to get your work done at the best of your ability without sacrificing your wellness. So all of that is to say that I've designed this week and next week to be interconnected so that you have a little bit of agency, to use one of our concept words, to think through how it's going to make the most sense for you to get the work done, okay? Now, option A is to do more work later. In this option, you would focus on selecting your primary source, writing your discussion board post number 3, and making space for additional rest this week. In this scenario, you would plan to spend more time working on our class the next 2 weeks, that is writing the PSA and doing the majority of your outlining process then. If you choose this option, there's less time to produce a draft and get feedback, but it might be the right choice if you are facing significant burnout, or if you are dealing with exams this week in other classes that need your immediate attention. I don't know if you're taking other classes beyond this summer class, but really what this option is getting at is that, you do have a full 2 weeks to technically produce the primary source analysis, right? But option A is kind of the version of this work plan where you wouldn't necessarily do a lot of work this week. You might do absolutely nothing. You might kind of just watch the lectures and have a sense of what's going on and really not do more than kind of, thinking about, what your primary source might look like and potentially doing your discussion board post. Now, at the same time, some students elect to kind of take this week off as a way of just kind of having a chance to take a break if they're finding that the other classes that they're taking or just kind of their mental health overall just needs a moment of pause, that is also totally fine. Basically, option A is about you kind of taking this week at the pace that makes sense for you, which might mean doing some work. It also might mean doing no work and kind of planning to make next week a big catch-up week. Now, option B is about doing more work now, which you can kind of think of as front loading the work. Now, depending on kind of what your typical getting work done plan looks like, right? This may or may not make sense for you. I know some of you have elected to really make use of the monthly deadline, and that is totally fine, of kind of doing the majority of the work towards the end of the month and submitting it all at once. Others of you have kind of made use of the recommended weekly deadline to kind of hold yourself accountable. Some of you have kind of blended the two processes together. Option B would be an approach where you are really front loading or in some ways meeting the recommended weekly deadline instead of postponing any of the labor, okay? Now, with front loading your work, this means that you will commit to doing more work related to this class this week so that what you have to do for next week is significantly reduced. In this scenario, you would select your primary source, you would write your discussion board post number 3, and you would produce a partial draft or full draft of the PSA so that you have time to get feedback from me on your writing and so that you have more time to revise it. This might be the right choice if you are anticipating exams or heavier workload for another class next week that will need your attention. So with option B, and again, you don't have to hold yourself strictly to either of these plans. You can kind of, modify them to work in a way that works best for you. But with option B, the idea here would be that you would really prioritize getting as much work done as possible this week. Now, sometimes with this work plan, students have chosen to just do discussion board post 3, kind of be aware of what their primary source is, consult the lectures and leave it at that, and just think about the PSA in its entirety next week. Other students who get really nervous about major essays and kind of major assignments have sort of made use of this week as an opportunity to start drafting the PSA so that they could meet with me in office hours, or they could kind of email me a draft so that they could get feedback on their paper. So option B is really about if you're more of a nervous person, an anxiety prone person, option B is going to kind of give you the ability to use this week as a way to get ahead, to make sure that you have time to get feedback, or just simply to quell your own nerves and make sure that you've kind of got, a firm grasp on what's to come. Whereas option A is all about kind of delaying this and giving yourself a chance to rest this week so that you can be more prepared to get caught up next week. Neither plan is better than the other. Either of them is totally fine. Again, you might find that a little bit of option A and a little bit of option B is what's going to work best for you, or you're going to kind of modify either of those plans in some way that's going to kind of make sense. But the point is, really think on these two options and consider if either of them kind of make sense to help you plan your work plan for this week, especially because primary source analysis counts for so many points towards your final grade. And then finally, I just wanted to flag for you that you have another optional extra credit opportunity, which is battery pack number 2, which is due June 30th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern via email, not to Carmen. And when you email it to me, it should go to sweeney.464@buckeyemail.osu.edu. I screenshotted for you where you can see on the Carmen page where the battery packs are organized. They're in the first module that you see when you go to our Carmen page. So hopefully you see them right away. And I've included these headers to provide reminders as to when exactly they should be turned in. I've removed the first battery pack because the date to submit that has already expired. And just as a reminder, if you're thinking about or interested in doing battery pack number 2, it is able to be turned in for a maximum of 5 extra credit points. And basically the idea here would be that you engage with the text listed below. The full list, of course, is on the actual prompt, and you make connections to the theme of and topics explored in our section of English 1110. If you find that none of the texts that are listed in the assignment are of interest to you, you could you could propose an alternative text that you would like to use and kind of just clear it with me in advance to make sure that it meets the requirements. But the idea is that you will watch the text selected from the list below, or that you selected and got cleared for me to use in advance. And as you watch it, you'll really think about if the organizer or organizers of the virtual event or the creator or creators of the text put forth a social commentary, if they share a personal narrative or experience, discuss representation in pop culture, or speak about a larger project, for example, like a book, an organization, etc. And you're really thinking through how this event or program is offering a form that is conveying the message in a particular way. Okay. And again, the kind of formatting requirements is that it's a 2 to 3 page double-spaced response paper in which you discuss how the form shapes the content and how this resource relates to our course theme and conversations. And again, hint, consider if some of the concepts we have covered in class appear in your selected resource, okay? So that is everything that I have for you this week in our overview lecture. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email. You can always call me on the phone during my office hours or check in with me via Zoom during office hours. Again, I am here to be of support and I'm happy to help however I can. I will talk to you again soon in my in-depth lecture, and I hope that you have a good rest of your week. Bye.